Hey lads, well, I think I might have the missing piece. I'm saying that very dramatically, but I think I'm not the first person to talk about this. It's out there for everybody to see. It's out there even on YouTube, the supremely controlled organism of the deep state. And of everything that is nefarious and corrupt that is YouTube. Well, I'm on YouTube as well, so what does that say about me? But there's an interview with Tucker Carlson on what's called the Full Send podcast. Never had heard of this podcast before. And it was recorded about a month ago. And it's extremely revelatory. It's about an hour, about an hour and a half long. It's very entertaining. I recommend watching all of it, but especially the last, say, 10 or 15 minutes of it. Unfortunately, the label, it's got the sensationalist label, like Tucker Carlson tells what he thinks about the truth about aliens. And yeah, there is a tiny part of it where he talks about these beings or these seeming life forms that may be from off-world, may not be, but how the story of what's various things that they've done and servicemen who have been killed in their presence, how that's been covered up, and that's kind of interesting, but that's not the focus of the interview. So I think that's a highly misleading title. But the most interesting part of the entire interview, in which Tucker Carlson is just very frank, he's just very down to earth, just like not holding back on anything, so it's not the restrained version. This is the unchained Tucker. He's cussing up a blue streak, and he's just saying exactly how he feels about everything. But near the very end, the last 10 or 15 minutes, he says, "I'm so ashamed to be a part of this media establishment for so long." And I'm paraphrasing here, but what he says is, I've lived most of my life, and he's older than me. Looks younger. Looks about 15 years younger than me. He's still got that baby face and everything. But he's 53 years old, and he said, I've lived most of my life thinking that the mainstream media, whatever you want to call it, the highly funded media, he worked for CNN before he worked for Fox, and he worked for, I think, Good Morning America. Like he was in, he was a part of that beast for a long, long time. And he actually believed that they were telling the truth. He actually thought for a long time that they were actually out to, this is the fourth estate, right? And they were actually out to expose the truth and keep people in power honest and that sort of thing. And then he was only realized recently, he says, and I feel so stupid about it. he really he talks about how ridiculous he feels now to have come to the conclusion or to have reached the realization that the media is not there to shine the light of truth on things. It's not there to expose corruption in high places. It's there to do the bidding of the corrupt people in high places, and that's why they only tell certain stories in a certain way, and they completely ignore other things that are totally newsworthy. And he says I was a part of that. I believe in the Iraq War. I thought the Iraq War was a good thing, and I thought we were doing good over there, and I believe the lies. And that takes some cojones. I mean, to be somebody who he hadn't been fired yet, right? He was still a part of the machine, basically, at that point. He still had his show at the point when he was recording this podcast. But he was saying, man, I was duped I'm such an idiot. I was duped for so long. I grew up in it. I guess his dad was also in the media. They grew up in D.C., in the middle of it all. And they just, and he says, I feel ashamed that I dismissed people, that I laughed at people without hearing them out. And it's very powerful. I would recommend, I recommend watching the whole thing, but if you don't have time, watch the last 15 minutes, of the podcast. It's quite revelatory, and I think that interview was probably a big reason why they gave him the ouster over at Fox. That's just my guess. There are probably some other things as well, but that's that interview, what he had to say in that interview, how he's just completely off the reservation, in his mind, even if at the time he was still gaining sustenance from it, from the machine, from the media monster machine. His mind was already elsewhere. He knew that it was all a lie. So watch it. Watch this video and judge for yourself if you haven't already seen it. And I will link it below. Thanks for watching.